Welcome to Paternity Truth. In a case filled with doubt, accusations, and unanswered questions, the truth about Jabril's parentage finally comes to light, but the real challenge isn't DNA, it's whether two parents can put aside their mistrust for the sake of their child. Watch till the end to see how the court's ruling changes everything, and don't forget to subscribe for more shocking paternity stories. The case opens with a tense energy as Mr. Barlow steps forward to express his doubts about being the father of young Jabril, a doubt he says has grown stronger over time because he believes the child shares no physical resemblance to him. His voice carries a mix of frustration and certainty as he insists that every time he looks at the boy, he sees nothing that connects them, nothing that reflects his own features or family traits. And this lack of resemblance has fueled his belief that he has been misled. He explains that he has been carrying this suspicion quietly for too long, feeling as though he has been living under a cloud of confusion and deception, and now that the issue has finally reached the courtroom, he is determined to speak his truth without holding anything back. On the other side stands Ms. Winslow, the mother, who firmly rejects his claims and maintains with equal conviction that Mr. Barlow is indeed Jabril's biological father. She appears both offended and exhausted by the repeated denial, insisting that she knows when and with whom she conceived her child. Her tone suggests a deep emotional investment, not just for herself but for her son, who she believes deserves recognition from the man she claims helped create him. The conflict between them highlights not only a biological dispute but also layers of hurt, mistrust, and unresolved issues from their past relationship. As both sides prepare to present their accounts, the courtroom becomes a battleground of personal history, emotional wounds, and the pursuit of truth. Mr. Barlow stands by his belief that appearances tell the story, while Ms. Winslow stands by her certainty that biology does not lie. And the tension between them sets the stage for a dramatic and emotional confrontation driven by their need for closure and validation. Mr. Barlow builds on his earlier doubts by emphasizing that his suspicion isn't based only on the child's appearance but also on the timeline surrounding the conception, which he believes makes his paternity highly unlikely. He explains that during the period when Jabril would have been conceived, he was away for an extended stretch, handling personal matters that kept him physically distant from Ms. Winslow. According to him, the dates simply do not align, and this creates what he sees as a clear inconsistency in her claim. As he recounts the timeline, he becomes more resolute, insisting that it is impossible for him to be the father if he was not even present during the crucial window when conception would have occurred. He then shifts to what he describes as troubling behavior he noticed around that time, focusing particularly on the presence of the landlord in Ms. Winslow's life. He claims that while he was gone, the landlord visited frequently, often engaging in repairs or offering help in ways Mr. Barlow now interprets as suspicious. In his view, these visits provided opportunity, and given his absence, the landlord becomes the only logical alternative in his mind. He suggests that the close proximity, unexplained favors, and consistent presence of another man raise questions that cannot be ignored. This theory, though rooted in speculation, appears to be a major source of his emotional turmoil, pushing him to believe that Ms. Winslow may have formed a relationship behind his back during the time he was away. His frustration comes from feeling deceived and from the possibility that he has been accused of neglecting a child who might not even be his. As he lays out these claims, his tone reflects both a deep sense of betrayal and a desperate need for clarity, hoping that the truth will finally surface through the court's examination. Mr. Barlow deepens his narrative by describing what he considers one of the most unsettling parts of the entire situation. A pattern of behavior that he says only intensified his doubts and pushed him to question everything he thought he knew about Ms. Winslow during the time he was away. He explains that throughout his absence, he called her repeatedly, not once or twice, but more than 80 times, each attempt made out of concern, loneliness, and a desire to stay connected despite the physical distance. What troubled him most was that these calls would often go unanswered, and when they were picked up, the line would go silent or abruptly disconnect, leaving him frustrated and confused. According to him, every time he tried to address this unusual behavior, Ms. Winslow would offer the same explanation, insisting that the landlord was at the house doing repairs, sometimes late into the night, and that the noise, the disruption, or the situation somehow made it difficult for her to speak. For Mr. Barlow, these explanations never sat right, especially because the timing felt too coincidental, too repetitive, and too conveniently aligned with moments when she seemed unwilling or unable to communicate. The idea that a landlord would be at her home that frequently, and specifically at late hours, struck him as implausible and suspicious, leading him to imagine scenarios that fueled his growing sense of betrayal. Each unanswered call added another layer of doubt, and each abrupt hang-up felt like evidence of something being hidden from him. Instead of easing his concerns, Ms. Winslow's responses only amplified them, and over time, the repeated pattern of unclear communication made him believe firmly that she was not alone and that the landlord might have been more involved in her life than she admitted. This accumulation of unanswered questions and late-night disruptions became the foundation of his suspicion that the situation was far more complicated than she wanted him to believe. Ms. Winslow responds to the accusations with a tone that reflects both frustration and exhaustion, making it clear that she feels misunderstood and unfairly judged for circumstances she believes were beyond her control. She explains that during the period Mr. Barlow keeps referring to, she was already pregnant and physically limited in what she could do around the home. Simple tasks like lifting, moving furniture, or handling repairs were difficult and sometimes impossible for her, leaving her in a position where she had no choice but to rely on others for help. She emphasizes that the landlord's presence was strictly connected to these practical needs and had nothing to do with any sort of romantic involvement. According to her, the landlord stepped in because she lacked the financial stability to hire professional help and because her living situation required immediate attention. She describes her circumstances as challenging, with limited income and few people she could truly depend on, which made the landlord's willingness to assist feel like a necessity rather than a choice. Her voice conveys irritation at the suggestion that accepting help somehow equates to infidelity, insisting that the repairs were legitimate, needed, and entirely unrelated to her personal relationships. She also hints at how emotionally draining it has been to have her actions constantly reinterpreted as evidence of wrongdoing, particularly when she was already vulnerable due to her pregnancy and financial stress. To her, the landlord's involvement was simply a matter of survival and practicality, and she believes Mr. Barlow has blown ordinary circumstances into something scandalous because of his own insecurities and absence during that time. She maintains firmly that there was never anything improper happening and that her only focus back then was protecting her health, managing her home, and preparing for the arrival of her baby, not engaging in any affair as Mr. Barlow suggests. Ms. Winslow explains that the public reaction to Jabral's appearance added another layer of confusion and anxiety for her, as she noticed that people outside the immediate family often commented on the child's features in ways that seemed to contradict what she expected. Neighbors, acquaintances, and even strangers would remark that Jabril looked Hispanic or appeared to be of mixed heritage, and these repeated observations unsettled her because they did not match the physical characteristics of either herself or Mr. Barlow as she knew them. She describes how these comments, meant or not, began to gnaw at her certainty about the child's parentage, planting seeds of doubt that she could not easily dismiss. The remarks were constant enough that she says they sometimes led her to question not only who Jabral's father might be but whether she herself was truly the biological mother, a thought she acknowledges as disturbing and emotionally taxing. Ms. Winslow recounts turning to research and anecdotal reports she encountered online and in literature about hospital mistakes, claiming that studies suggest a significant number of babies are switched at birth, with one figure she cites being 28,000 babies a year, a statistic the court does not confirm or validate, but one that illustrates the depth of her concern and the lengths she went to seek explanations. Her point in citing this research is not to accuse the hospital but to show that she has grappled with real fear and uncertainty regarding Jabral's identity, and that her doubts were shaped by more than just casual comments from others. She frames these worries as part of a broader struggle to reconcile what she sees in her child's appearance with her own understanding of genetics and family resemblance. The combination of external observations and her own uncertainties created a complex emotional landscape in which Ms. Winslow felt she had to question everything she thought she knew about Jabral's origins, compounding the stress she already experienced during pregnancy and the ongoing paternity dispute. The courtroom fell into a quiet tension as the judge addressed the next crucial piece of evidence, turning the focus to the question that had been lingering over the proceedings since the beginning: the biological connection between Ms. Winslow and Jabril. After careful consideration of the maternity test results, the judge delivered a clear statement confirming that Ms. Winslow is indeed the child's biological mother. The report, which was scrutinized by both sides, indicated a maternity probability of 99.99999%, leaving virtually no room for doubt. This figure, extraordinarily high, reflects the precision and reliability of modern DNA testing, and it served to resolve one of the most emotionally charged aspects of the dispute. For Ms. Winslow, the confirmation was both a relief and a validation of the experiences she had endured throughout the pregnancy and in the months following Jabral's birth, as she had faced public commentary, personal doubt, and ongoing questions about her role as a mother. The acknowledgement by the court that she is Jabral's biological mother reinforced her position in the case and underscored the accuracy of her earlier statements regarding her pregnancy and the circumstances surrounding the child's conception. In delivering the confirmation, the judge emphasized the scientific certainty provided by the test results, signaling to all parties that this matter could now be considered settled in terms of maternal identity. The verification also had implications for the broader narrative of the case, clarifying that any doubts about Jabral's parentage could not logically extend to the mother, though questions about the father remained. The courtroom atmosphere reflected the weight of this confirmation, as it not only affirmed Ms. Winslow's biological connection but also highlighted the role of DNA evidence in resolving deeply personal disputes, illustrating how technology and legal procedure intersect to establish facts with an unprecedented level of certainty. The judge's statement left no ambiguity, marking a definitive moment in the ongoing deliberations. The judge turned attention to Mr. Barlow, shifting the focus from maternal certainty to the more contentious question of paternal identity, a matter that had dominated much of the courtroom tension. The court acknowledged that Mr. Barlow had signed Jabral's birth certificate, a legal action that automatically designates him as the child's father, carrying with it all the rights and responsibilities that status entails. Despite this formal recognition, the court made it clear that signing the birth certificate does not settle the question of biological paternity, and this distinction became a central point of discussion. Mr. Barlow faced direct questioning regarding his understanding of these responsibilities and the implications of the ongoing dispute over whether he is Jabral's biological father. He admitted openly that while he maintains doubts about his genetic connection to the child, he is fully aware that his signature on the birth certificate establishes legal obligations that cannot be ignored. This includes the duty to provide financial support and maintain a parental role regardless of the results of any forthcoming paternity testing. His acknowledgement reflected both a sense of resignation and a commitment to uphold the law, showing that he understands the distinction between biology and legality within the family court system. The judge used this opportunity to emphasize the seriousness of legal parenthood, noting that courts prioritize the welfare and stability of the child and that a signed birth certificate carries binding obligations that remain in effect unless formally challenged and altered through legal procedures. Mr. Barlow's statement also highlighted the emotional complexity of the situation, as he is navigating feelings of uncertainty about his potential biological relationship while simultaneously recognizing that the law binds him to act in Jabral's best interests. His acceptance of responsibility, even amid doubt, underscored the court's approach of balancing legal duties with personal concerns, ensuring that the child's needs remain a priority throughout the deliberations and eventual resolution of the paternity question. After months of uncertainty, emotional conflict, and intense scrutiny, the court finally reached a definitive conclusion regarding Jabral's parentage, bringing the long-running dispute to a formal resolution. Despite Mr. Barlow's repeated doubts about biological connection, his concerns about timing, and his suspicions regarding the landlord, the official paternity tests confirmed that he is indeed Jabral's father. The ruling came after careful review of DNA evidence, legal documentation, and testimony from both parties, leaving no room for ambiguity in establishing the child's lineage. This outcome underscored the authority of scientific testing in resolving personal and deeply emotional conflicts, demonstrating how the court relies on objective evidence to clarify matters that have caused confusion and distress for everyone involved. The judge emphasized that, regardless of any past disagreements or allegations, the results mandate a shared commitment from both parents to fulfill their legal responsibilities, including emotional support, financial care, and involvement in Jabral's upbringing. The ruling reinforced the principle that a child's welfare takes precedence over personal grievances, urging Mr. Barlow and Ms. Winslow to set aside lingering doubts and focus on creating a stable and nurturing environment. Both parents were reminded that the resolution of legal parentage carries practical and moral implications, and that moving forward cooperatively is essential for the child's development and well-being. The courtroom atmosphere shifted from tension to a cautious sense of closure, as both parties absorbed the reality of the decision and the responsibilities it entails. The judge's guidance framed the next steps as an opportunity for healing, cooperation, and dedication to the child's needs, stressing that the conclusion of the paternity question is not the end of their duties but the beginning of a structured and accountable parenting relationship. In affirming Mr. Barlow as the father and establishing joint legal responsibility, the court provided clarity and a path forward that prioritizes Jabral's best interests above all else. The judge addressed Mr. Barlow and Ms. Winslow with a tone that combined firmness and concern, highlighting the consequences of the prolonged confusion, suspicion, and emotional tension that had characterized their interactions over the past months. She explained that their ongoing distrust and constant questioning of each other's motives had created an unstable atmosphere, not only for themselves but most importantly for Jabril, whose early years are critical for emotional and psychological development. The courtroom became a space for a frank acknowledgement that the environment surrounding a child profoundly affects their sense of security, attachment, and overall well-being. The judge emphasized that children thrive when they are nurtured in a stable, predictable, and loving environment, where both parents are engaged, cooperative, and present in constructive ways, and she warned that the patterns of doubt and hostility observed in this case risked undermining the child's emotional foundation. Her admonition was not merely a critique but a call to action, urging both parents to reflect on their behavior and recognize the responsibility they carry to prioritize Jabral's needs above personal grievances or unresolved conflicts. She encouraged them to actively work on rebuilding trust, communication, and mutual respect, noting that doing so would directly benefit the child and help establish routines, consistency, and emotional security that every child deserves. By framing the discussion in terms of Jabral's welfare rather than assigning blame, the judge sought to redirect the parents' focus toward collaboration, understanding, and shared commitment. The underlying message was clear: while legal determinations and DNA tests resolve questions of parentage, they do not automatically create a nurturing home, and it is the conscious, ongoing efforts of the parents that shape the child's environment. The judge's guidance highlighted the essential link between parental unity, emotional stability, and a healthy upbringing, making it evident that the next steps for both Mr. Barlow and Ms. Winslow must involve putting aside lingering doubts to create a secure and loving home for Jabril. Subscribe to Paternity Truth right now.